Hello everyone, figured I'd make a quick video today talking about a few ways you guys can use to jumpstart your soil. I'm not going to go crazy in depth. I hope to keep this video short, but let's just hop right into it. Okay, first things first, as you guys can see covering my rows, we have mulch. So I've started applying mulch. I haven't covered every inch of every row yet, but we're starting to get a good layer of mulch going. So that's a really self-explanatory, easy way to start building better soil conditions. So get some organic material, throw it on, and you're good to go. Okay. Again, plants will generate the organic material for you. I've said this in the last video, guys. Plants will fix your soil for you, but these are just ways you can jumpstart. Okay. Method number 2 to now jumpstart your mulch would be inoculation. Now, if you have a good compost pile, or can find some good leaf mold, if you guys can find sources naturally to inoculate, go ahead and do that. If you're starting from nothing though, starting from scratch, you guys can buy yourself some mycorrhizal inoculant. Okay, so let me show you guys some that I'm going to be using today. I'm not saying get a specific brand, I'm just showing you guys what I'm doing here. This one is cheap, it's easy to get a hold of, so this is what I'm using today. Now, all I did was go ahead, fill up a 5-gallon bucket with water, put in maybe a 1/4 cup to a 1/2 cup of this inoculant, stir it up. Then I'll just get a cup, right? Just like that, fill it up with some, walk up and down the rows, just kind of dribble this as I walk down, okay? That will inoculate your mulch, speed up the decomposition, and get the mycorrhizae and microbes a little bit more active. It's not necessary to do. There are likely a fair bit of microbes in your mulch already. This is just to get things jump started, okay? Now, method 3. Method 3 is gonna be using whatever plants are naturally growing on your property, whether that's trees or shrubs or green material, okay? And what you're gonna do is go ahead, get that green material. I like to just snip it off, right? Leave a couple leaves, so that way this plant stays fixing the soil, because these plants that are naturally growing, the ones you did not plant, they're growing to fix the soil, to improve something, whether that's to sequester different nutrients, or whatever the case, they're serving a function, right? So go ahead, leave that root system in the ground, okay? And, leave a few leaves, that way it bounces back quickly, and it'll just give you more and more material that you guys can use to then make a compost tea. So a compost tea made from the natural plants that are growing around. These plants are nature's remineralization program. That's what I've heard it called, and I think it's a fair description. I'm a big proponent of nature has a way. So these plants are here for a reason. This is what your soil needs. These plants are here to sequester that for you. Then you guys throw them in a bucket with some water. Fill up a 5-gallon bucket, then cover it with water, throw a lid on it, let it sit for a few weeks to a few months. Won't go too into depth on microbe tea or on compost tea, because there's a lot of videos explaining. However, all I'll say is people get concerned and they say, well, covering those greens in water and leaving it for a few weeks or a few months is creating an anaerobic environment. And while that's true, this is what I'll say to that. In the same way, anaerobic microbes don't survive in aerobic conditions, aerobic microbes won't survive in these anaerobic conditions in this microbe tea. Now, how does that, apply, or why should that make you feel better? Well, as soon as you guys pour this anaerobic compost tea onto mulch, onto soil, as soon as your soil starts drying out, all of a sudden it becomes an aerobic environment. So in the same way aerobic bacteria won't thrive in this bucket, the anaerobic bacteria, the ones you don't want, they're not going to thrive as soon as you go ahead and put it on the ground. So then the balance will shift and it'll start to become a lot more of an aerobic compost tea. Okay, if you live in the wettest place on earth where your soil never dries out, then maybe you guys are more valid to be concerned about putting anaerobic microbes into your soil. But for most people, if your soil dries out, and if you're just pouring it on mulch or whatever the case, if things are going to dry out, then it's aerobic. Okay, so you don't really need to worry about that. That's my opinion. I wouldn't apply this onto like lettuce or something that I'm going to eat the next day for sure, but as soon as you guys apply it, it's going to start turning aerobic, and then, you know, within a few weeks it'll be a completely different set of microbes that were, you know, in the bucket. Now it's going to be completely different as soon as you apply it. So you're taking those microbes out of the anaerobic environment, putting them into an aerobic environment, and then nature just works its way from there. So yeah, guys, those are 3 easy methods you guys can use to jumpstart your system. The plants will do it all for you, but it takes time. So if you have the means, go ahead, jumpstart the system. I'm going to give you guys a bonus thing you guys can do as well, which is you guys can get some molasses or some brown sugar, mix that up in water, similar with the inoculant solution. You guys can just walk up and down your rows, sprinkle some of that sugar water on there. Preferably do this stuff before a light rain if you can, so that way it kind of waters it down into the mulch. But that sugar is going to feed those microbes, feed that mycorrhizae, and boost the population. Now again, guys, plants are the answer, because that's how plants interact with the microbes and mycorrhizae anyway, right? They photosynthesize through the leaves, and then it pumps down sugars and exudates, and it exchanges with those microbes. And that's why the microbes go ahead and get nutrients for your plants, because your plants provide the sugars to your microbes. So plants will do that for you much better than just applying sugar water will. When you apply some sugar directly to the soil or to the mulch, the mycorrhizal and microbial population is going to kind of spike. It's going to peak. It's going to increase very rapidly. Then as soon as those sugars are all consumed, it's going to crash back down, and a lot of those microbes, you know, they're not going to last, right? Whereas plants, they're providing a consistent, steady source of sugars to the microbes and mycorrhizae. So then you don't have those peaks and crashes in your microbial activity. But just to get things started, if you guys want to use a little sugar along with your inoculant or whatever the case, that will just even more so kind of boost those early microbial populations. But yeah, guys, those are a few easy methods you guys can use to jumpstart your soil. There's plenty more. There's biochar and manually working the soil, and, you know, all sorts of different ways to jumpstart your system. But these are 3 really easy ways anyone can do to just go ahead and start improving those soil conditions, improving the life in your soil, feeding the soil, and using, you know, this nutrient extract, these compost teas, to actually feed the plants, right? So you're feeding the plants and you're feeding the soil, and over time those 2 things kind of become the same. As those plants start working with those microbes, and as all the biology becomes connected, they become more or less kind of like the same thing. Once you feed the soil, then it feeds the plants. But just in this early beginning phase, you guys, you know, understand the difference and do both, and it'll just jumpstart things even that much more. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Talk to you next time.